remove visas. This idea that when I'm going to Nigeria, I need a visa and I need an entry document and an exit document should die.
We don't want anything that looks like colonialism. We want to be one thing with our sisters in Tanzania, in Nigeria, in Egypt, in DRC, in Sudan, in South Sudan, everywhere else in Africa. We don't want passport, we don't want visa. We must move free of charge. We are one thing. This continent is one.
Saribonani, Dumelang, Makadini, hello. Welcome to This and That with Brian Zikali. I'm Brian Zikali. As is my custom now, I'm going to try and blow the horn and call Africa and see if Africa can hear me. But it's a journey, ladies and gentlemen. I'm still learning. It's going to take me time, maybe weeks, maybe months, hopefully not years. Well, it's coming. We'll get there in the end. Now, don't forget to like, subscribe, and also hit the notification button so that you can get any and all of our content as it comes through. Now, today I wanted to talk about a very interesting issue. The issue of borders is an issue that has been discussed quite a few times by a few people. This is just my take on it, okay? It may resonate with a few, and if you want to discuss it further, put a comment. Let's talk about these things, because the borders that Africa has, do they need to go away? Do they need to disappear? Should we be a borderless Africa? We know there's a lot of questions when it comes to migration and immigration across the continent, where people don't like these people being in their vicinity and they feel they are actually affecting their resources, taking their jobs, taking their hard-earned cash and whatever else they may be. But my question is, do we need these borders? Because these borders did not exist in the way that they've been shaped. So are we best moving back to pre-colonial borders, the borders that were in effect made by our ancestors, made by our own people, or should we accept the borders that were created under very dubious circumstances? You remember 1884 to 1885, the Berlin Conference, where they came up with this great act where they said, let us carve up Africa, as if they were carving a birthday cake amongst the imperial powers. You had your Belgiums, your England, Britain, as it were, your Germany, Portugal, and perhaps a scattering of other countries who felt that there was a need to carve up Africa so that they could be able to plunder its resources. The purpose was very clear. Let's not make a mistake. The purpose was for control, for extraction, for domination. And why do we say that? Because there was no African voice there. There was no African to consent, and there was no African representation whatsoever, which is why many African countries had to fight, sometimes just fighting legally, sometimes fighting by force to try and effect independence in their own countries. And yes, looking at the likes of Kwame Nkrumah, who were champions of African independence in sub-Saharan Africa, and there's a lot of others that we could name. But what is interesting is that independence restored political control, but it did not effect economic sovereignty, and also it maintained colonial borders. It kept them intact the way they have always been, and as time has gone on, it has proved quite hard for Africans traveling within Africa, even harder than Africans traveling to Europe, to Britain, to the United States, Australia, and others. There seems to be this disconnect from reality, that it's harder for Africans to travel within their own borders, high visas or difficult circumstances, a lot of bureaucracy the restrictions on the visa, there's a lot of mistrust and cultural divide where Africans see each other as strangers, yet we are essentially one people. The way the African borders were created, where they didn't take into account ethnicity, they didn't take into account language, they didn't take into account regional stability, family integrity. All they did was they just carved it up. And Africans have unfortunately inherited this and then continued with it moving forward. But the question is, are these borders, are they psychological barriers or simply physical ones, or both? And I think the likes of Ibrahim Traore, the likes of Julius Malema, they mention that, Pan-Africanism, the modern Pan-Africanist should be looking at all these things and saying, surely we need to change, surely something is not right. And I would urge people to listen to the likes of Brian Kagoro, Joshua Maponga, when they discuss some of these issues of Pan-Africanism and the issues of borders. They are very critical to our understanding of our identity, cultural identity, and political integrity. And we need to be people who are multifaceted in terms of our outlook. We need to have a global view of things, because other continents are having economic blocks and unions where they travel freely, they trade freely, but Africa remains restricted amongst ourselves. We keep on making things difficult for ourselves. But the honest truth is the borders do exist. We cannot hide away from that. But we need to make sure that whilst we may not be able to eliminate them straight away, we need to redefine them, because there are benefits to open borders where you've got cross-country trade, obviously intercontinental trade, where intra-continental trade, where people can trade with each other and strengthen each other's economies. There are certain things that we can find in the Congo that we cannot find in Tanzania, and the same in Zimbabwe and Botswana and South Africa. We have enough resources to build each other up if we're able to trade freely and easily without trying to make life very difficult for one another. Because the goal, in my view, is not so much as having new countries or new borders or no borders at all. We need to have an open continent, an open Africa, not a borderless one, because we do know that some criminal elements and some imperial elements take advantage of these divisions to try and create havoc. But we are saying that it's very important, in my view, that we have an open Africa that makes it easier for Africans to move around for the sake of tourism, for the sake of trade, for the sake of cultural interaction. All these things are very important, and we need to be at the forefront of the world and say, if you're an African, you are treated with dignity, you are treated respectfully, and you can move around your own continent, because it is our continent. We need to be free to move around without restrictions and without name calling or finger pointing, without the unnecessary divisions that were not created by us or our ancestors, but were in fact created by imperialists and colonialists. And we need to be shying away from that settler mentality and saying, we are brothers, we are sisters, this is who we are as a continent, and this is how we expect, to move forward, especially for our generations that follow behind us, because they will follow, but what they inherit is what we do today, and how we do it today will determine, the progress as we move forward. Now, borders, yes, may appear to be needed because they already exist, but it's more important, of course, to consider that we need connection, we need unity, we need trust, and these are things that are important. If we can work together, even in our so-called little divisions, if we can work together and be kind to one another. Simple principles of kindness, respect, tolerance. If we can have those, then we'll render these borders irrelevant. We won't need to legislate or bulldoze them out of the way. People will find that their relevance will fade away, and Africa can only be stronger together, because a divided Africa is weak. A divided Africa is vulnerable. But we need a unified Africa that can stand the test of time and face the world in the way that it should. Because the world needs to know that we are a people, one people with a singular focus, the development of our people, the alleviation of poverty. These are the things that are most important in any African's mind. The ability to be able to sit back and watch our grandchildren grow into adulthood, our children grow and become their own nation, their own people, to develop their own strength. These are things that matter to me, and I think an open Africa, not necessarily a borderless one, is critical. This has been This and That with Brian Skarikanube. If any of these things resonate with you, drop a comment, drop a like, subscribe, and let's talk about it, because it's very important that we have different views, because not everyone will agree with me. But what I know is Africa is growing, Africa is rising, and Africa deserves its place in this world, in the geopolitical space, a world where Africa can be seen, not just heard. Let's talk about it. Sounds okay.